12 volts, 1 amp in. I raised it up slightly by putting it on this stone. It's on a stone there. Brings it up about 3/4 of an inch. No plasma off the tip over here, and this is still just free floating over there. And it's firing pretty constantly. All silent. A little bit of clicking from the discharge. So 470 kilohertz up here, right about an inch down on the coil. It's looking at about, depending on the amount of capacity. I played with a couple of smaller capacitors. This is, I think, like 100 PF. And I have one that's like 1,000 PF. And I'm not sure what those are. I have to find one and measure it again. But using those two capacitors on the scope and putting one end of the capacitor up against the top and the other end dangling over here with the probe on the left side touching the top and the ground of the probe on the right side of the capacitor, you could see the rough volt peak to peak. So on the smaller capacitor, it was noting at about a 15 volt peak to peak at 470 kilohertz. On the slightly larger small capacitor, it was noting about a 10 volt peak to peak. Okay, so depending on what these are, I think these are higher voltage rated, but they're probably about the same size as the small capacitor. So they're probably charging at the 15 volts peak to peak that's being pumped at 470 kilohertz, so 470,000 times a second. And now it's no longer got that pulse or plasma pulling off the top here, and it's firing more consistently, so it's silent. So it would be interesting to set up like 5 or 6 of these, set up different coil arrangements over here in parallel series with this discharge, and then see what kind of stuff could actually be pulled back off of there, what kind of charge is pulled out of that, recovered. And depending on how many of these you can set up, I mean, I imagine the more you set up, the more this field is dispersed between the different ones, so they'll probably slow the actual discharge per iteration with each increase of iteration. So if I go to 2, it'll halve. If I go to 4, it'll quarter. Right? Follow. So we'll have to play with that and see what that looks like. It's interesting that it works though anyway. Touch the ground, it doesn't do anything. The side that would be normally connected to ground, rather. No plasma, nothing. Pretty interesting.